Mike Clay from ESPN, one of their top fantasy guys, does a great piece every year trying to predict statistical output for each and every NFL team. We're going to talk about Mike's projections for the Cleveland Browns this year, plus a little on Deion Sanders' comments and just where in the world is Jed Wills currently. Browns 3D on the OBR streaming network starts now. Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends, your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound Browns 3D on the OBR streaming network. I am your host, Jeff Lloyd, and we appreciate all of you who come out to the OBR each and every day, whether it is for the fantastic written content from our fabulous group of writers or joining us each and every evening beginning at 6 o'clock Eastern on the Browns streaming network, starting with Browns 3D. Today is Monday. You will have Jacob and you will have Sam Penix after me. They will be breaking down Dylan Gabriel, giving you their thoughts. So make sure you stick around for that. And of course, make sure you subscribe to the OBR on YouTube and of course to the OBR over on Twitch. Now, since the moment Shador Sanders was drafted on day 3 in the 5th round by the Cleveland Browns, Shedeur has done an incredible job himself of making his way to Cleveland, doing all the right things, saying all the right things, going the extra mile, trying to be cordial to the fandom, certainly lending a helping hand to all the young athletes in the Cleveland area that he comes across, even speaking at schools, taking time out after his workouts to shake hands, take pictures. Shedeur has done a phenomenal effort to this point, even thus to the point where there was the rookie cooking class the other evening. And, Shedeur took the opportunity a couple of times with his teammates to go live, talk to the fans, through social media, even mentioned, that, hey, here's an idea that I would do for Joe Flacco, as the rookie quarterback, trying to pay your dues to those who have been there before you, talking about straightening up, asking Joe if he would need anything, he would be more than willing to oblige to take care of it for him. He's done a great job. There's just no way around it. Shador Sanders has done everything he could in his power to even the people who weren't so sure about Shador coming to Cleveland. Everybody is ready to fall in love if they haven't already. And that's kind of the magnitude in what Shador has done to this point since being a Cleveland Brown. Now, his father had spoke with Asante Samuel, and first things first, there is no reason to talk about Shador Sanders' draft slide anymore. It is bated breath at this point. It is over. It is beyond a month ago. It is just so far in the rearview mirror in the landscape of things. It does not matter anymore. So anybody, whether it's Shador, whether it's Deion, whether it is Bill Simmons, anybody that's talking about it at this point, you're just trying to basically rekindle the fire. There's no need for it. Nothing's going to change. He went in the 5th round. The Cleveland Browns selected him in the 5th round. Nothing is going to change. We can't basically put the genie back in the lamp. This is all over. Okay. Now, Deion could have certainly aided the fantastic work Shador has done to basically build himself back up and certainly get him, in good with the Cleveland faithful. I don't disagree with some of the words Dion's saying as far as, saying, it wasn't right the way Shador dropped and, all of these things. Again, it doesn't matter now. But the one thing, and this is, kind of where, I think Deion could have helped his son. He could have prefaced all of his comments by saying, none of it means anything now. He also said, if we had to do this over again, maybe we would have considered hiring an agent. Maybe we underestimated the draft process. Maybe, some of this is to blame on our end. Certainly would have just helped Shedeur. It would have all the work Shedeur done to get himself back up onto a high level, in good graces with everyone. If Deion had just said those words and had at least admitted that, they did not handle the draft process properly. It's all you needed to do. You didn't need to go back and start pointing fingers again. Nobody cares what the Giants thought. Nobody cares what the Raiders thought. And yes, I'm saying those teams specifically. Nobody cares. That part of it's over. And you want to know what? If he had just shown a little bit of humility, it would have done wonders for Shedeur. Shedor's done a great job so far. And what Deion said does not hurt Shedeur in any way now. But he could have said a couple of things that would have helped Shedeur further and his perception and his image. Didn't do it. I saw that Jedric Wills' name was floating around social media today. Interesting. Very interesting. First things first. Apparently, Jedric Wills is planning to maybe take all of this season off. It was always going to be interesting how this offseason went for Jed Wills, because the best part of the Jed Wills career was probably his rookie year. And then all of a sudden, about year two, we all started to see the issues. The play wasn't consistent. Sometimes he was just literally almost on pause in the middle of some plays. I do give him credit in the 2023 season for putting off surgery, for trying to come back and be a part of the late season run until basically the doctors told him, look, we're doing everything we can to rehab this knee. We're just not going to be there. So, yes, he ended up getting the surgery later than he should have, which definitely hampered the early part of 2024. Then there was the week late in the season, where he didn't think he could go. And then at that point, the Browns were done with him for 2024, but the Browns were done with him forever. There was no contract for Jed Wills for 2025. So what were they even bothering for at that point? Apparently, Jed Wills is now saying that he's going to take the time to prepare himself and, not sign with anyone until the knee is better, until the knee is healthy. Look, Jed Wills, and I've heard this from more than one person, and this certainly happens with athletes once they get into the league, the NFL, NBA, MLB. It's an awful lot of money that these kids get, especially considering that Jed was the 10th overall pick in the 2020 draft. It is a large amount of money. It can change you. And I'll be honest with you, his original contract, if you handle and manipulate that money correctly, that is never work again money. There are a few who have suggested that I have spoken with that, once Jed got a decent amount of money in his pocket, the want to in Jed Wills certainly dissipated. The hunger, the will, the want to be a great player, the want to be a better player. He's very quiet, very, subdued, not out in public very often. So, and I think it was telling that the Tennessee Titans, who was a team that had a lot of needs on the offensive line and had former Cleveland Browns offensive line coach Bill Callahan down there, were never essentially interested in Jed Wills or bringing him in. So for me, that kind of tells you, some things, because normally, when a guy is available, where's one of the first places they usually end up? They end up to an organization that, where they have a direct link or somebody who has, direct familiarity with him. Jed Wills didn't get a sniff. Maybe there's teams interested. I don't know. Are they in Canada? Are they in the actual NFL? But maybe for Jedric Wills, taking this time may be benefiting to him. But if Jed Wills wants to truly get back into the NFL, it's time to put down the paddles and take the game seriously and take the ability that the good Lord gifted you with a little more seriously. Otherwise, wouldn't stun me if we never heard of Jed Wills playing in the NFL again. I opened by talking about, and this is one of my favorite pieces that come out from any writer. And I'm not and for Mike Clay, this certainly comes out, as a fantasy piece, of course, right? But for me, the reason I like it is like whether you like it or not, it's projections. It's what you think the players are going to do, how they are going to perform, which gives always, and I've always loved doing this episode year in, year out. It gives you a thought process on, what you think, the players for each team will be able to do in, this season. So, now he breaks it down, obviously does all the positional groups. He certainly does all of offense. He does defense. He also does, win rate, all of those things. Anybody's curious, Mike Clay from ESPN NFL has the Browns at a 4-13 season. The probability rate for, their schedule in most of these games is really, really low. There's a couple of high ones. I think the probability rate to beat the Tennessee Titans is a high number. That is definitely the highest number by far. But now as far as the quarterback position, he has it basically breaking down that it is Kenny Pickett starting 8 games for the Cleveland Browns in 2025. And now his numbers, not fantastic, of course, but 178 completions out of 280 throws. Not fantastic, but certainly not enough to, keep your job over either. So a line of Kenny Pickett of 174 completions out of 281 attempts for 1,839 yards, 8 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and a scary number of 20 sacks. Now, if you figure it's 8 starts and it's 8 touchdowns per game, oof, you know what I'm saying? That's not very, very good at all. I would say Clay's overall thought process here on the Browns offense in 2025 is that the offense is going to struggle. And to be honest, when you have a quarterback room like the Browns currently have, and you're hoping that one of 4 guys catch lightning in a bottle, yeah, then it's hard to forecast all of a sudden that this team is just going to have some, top tier offensive numbers. There's nothing, unbelievable with the way, Mike has kind of put this together. He has Dylan Gabriel starting 5 games for the Browns this season. A stat line of 109 completions out of 171 attempts. Not bad. Over 1,200 yards, 5 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, and in 5 games, 12 sacks. So that's already 32 sacks. Apparently, Mike Clay is not a fan of the Cleveland Browns offensive line. Let's hope Mike's wrong on this one. Okay. Also, Shador Sanders starting 4 games, completing 86 out of 139 for a little under 1,000 yards, 4 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, and in 11 sacks that Shador Sanders possibly would be taking, which puts the Browns at 43. So that is almost 2.5 a game. Let's hope that number is not that high, of course. Now we're going to go over to the running backs. He actually has a lot of faith in Quinshon Judkins. Has Quinshon Judkins down for 211 carries for 922 yards, 6 touchdowns, an additional 40 receptions for 285 yards and another touchdown. I've said before, and I'll continue to say, the way the 2025 Cleveland Browns are going to be judged is going to be the development of the rookies, how the rookies perform. Because ideally, this team has a chance to get better, younger, and cheaper, which If this and these kids show promise in 2025, allows the Browns to once again start opening up the books, the checkbooks, come the spring, and sign some free agents. They have some contracts that could be coming off the books as well. So the rookies producing is huge. Now, the way Clay has it out in this article is it really feels like Quinshon Judkins is the guy, because next would be Jerome Ford with 82 carries for 377 yards and 2 touchdowns. Also another 22 receptions for 144 yards. These obviously numbers would be significantly lower than Jerome Ford gave in 24 or 23, as we all know. But when the Browns spent a pick as high as they did on Quinshon Judkins, it's obviously, a statement and a testimony to how high they really just are on Quinshon Judkins. Dylan Sampson's numbers, I think he will touch the ball more than this personally, but 62 receptions, 265 yards, a touchdown, and another 9 receptions for 60 yards. I think Sampson will get more opportunities. I think the Browns could conceivably run the ball even more than these numbers are projecting. We saw today, obviously the Browns had the charity golf tournament. The offensive linemen are excited about returning back to the system that made them all a great unit early on in the Stefanski regime. I did put out a tweet yesterday, and I still believe in this. I know a lot of us, are in a weird spot where, not having Nick Chubb in this running back room is tough as fans, as people that have watched this team, for so long, and certainly since, Nick has been here in 2018. It's difficult. It truly is. But also, it's okay to be, sad and upset that Nick Chubb is no longer a part of this organization. But it's also okay to kind of be excited about the future of Quinshon Judkins and Dylan Sampson in this Cleveland Browns running back room. These kids, were both solid in college. The Browns, due to Nick Chubb being this paramount player for this organization for the amount of time he was, we never really got the opportunity to have much new blood in there. And even Jerome Ford. Jerome Ford was never playing much. It took a catastrophic injury in 2023 for Ford to get an opportunity, and certainly showed well. And of course, 2024, Nick was not ready to go right out of the gate, so we got a lot of Jerome Ford. Nick and Jerome Ford neither finished the season in 2024. But, again, I understand everybody's, heavy heart to this situation, but it also does not mean that, we should not be excited for what Quinshon Judkins and Dylan Sampson can give to this team. For the receivers, now, Jerry Jeudy. We have Jerry Jeudy at 80 receptions for a little over 1,000 yards and 3 touchdowns. I think the question you have here is between the 3 to 4 quarterbacks that could play for the Cleveland Browns here in 2025. Can you get more consistent play than you did from the quarterbacks that played in 2024? I'd say yes. I mean, look, Jameis was fun, but let's not kid ourselves. Deshaun was doing nothing with a capital N. Absolutely nothing. I think one of the things I actually kind of like about this is the projections he has for Cedric Tillman. Now, we all think that Cedric is probably one of the key possible contributors for how this team goes in 2025. Has him for 60 receptions, 778 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Nice numbers. Now, strangely enough, Deontay Johnson is in here. So the numbers for Deontay Johnson are 40 receptions, 507 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Look, you're paying Deontay Johnson nothing guaranteed, league minimum money. If he can give you 40 for 507 and 3 scores, it means Deontay Johnson kept his head on straight, kept his mouth shut, and came in every day, did his work, didn't whine, didn't complain, did what was asked of him. That would be a nice, nice turnout for Deontay Johnson. There's nothing really here that's going to wow you outside of this. Jamari Thrash for 5 receptions, David Bell for 3 receptions. So not much faith and or belief in what this wide receiver room can do for the Browns in 2025 outside of Jerry Jeudy, Cedric Tillman, and of course Deontay Johnson. We get to the tight ends, has David Njoku at 73 receptions, 728 yards, and 5 scores. Again, we know what David is capable of. Again, a lot of the times it comes down to what the quarterbacks can do for you. Of course, this is not necessarily me giving you fantasy thoughts here. This is a fantasy piece, of course, from Mike Clay. But if you're picking up anything from this as far as a fantasy point, it would probably be stay away from Cleveland Browns players, right? Harold Fannin, and this is a little softer than I think. 19 receptions, 191 yards, and 1 touchdown. Fannin, it's going to be tough. Rookie tight ends, drafted where Fannin was drafted, usually don't, basically just come on the scene and tear it up. But I do think he could probably expect more than, basically 20, 200 and a touchdown from Harold Fannin as a rookie. I think he's just such a guy that's just going to ease right into place. It'll take a little while, but once Harold Fannin finds his groove, I think Harold Fannin is going to be a big, big asset to this team. Now, the defensive side of the ball, leading tackler, according to Mike Clay, would be Jordan Hicks. Of course, a lot of that is going to come down to health and just whether or not, Jordan Hicks can go the full gauntlet. But projected leading tackler would be Jordan Hicks. Second, Jerome Baker. I'm sorry, not second. Second would be Grant Delpit. Third would be Jerome Baker. Some other interesting ones, interceptions, of course, Denzel Ward to lead the team in interceptions once again. The total for sacks for Myles Garrett is at 10.4. Feels soft, right? But, how do you just say 15 sacks for somebody, right? But Myles Garrett figured to be over the double-digit mark once again, as we all believe. Some of the more notable ones, Malik Collins, over 4 sacks. That would probably be in line with what the Browns paid him. Mason Graham, 41 tackles, 3 sacks is his projection. Mike Hall, it's a low projection, but again, we don't really know where Mike Hall is health-wise or when Mike Hall would actually be joining the Browns for the 2025 season. Alex Wright figured at 2.5 sacks. Ogbo figured at 3 sacks. Isaiah McGuire at 2.5 sacks. I got to be honest, if it's only 2.5, it's disappointing because I think we're all hoping for, a jump here from Isaiah McGuire in this season. And the jump is going to need to come in pass rush. McGuire has really, really entrenched himself as a really functionally sound run defensive player. That's not what's going to pay the bills, though, unfortunately. What's going to pay the bills is if McGuire can get somewhere over 5, maybe closer to that 8 number in sack total. He can do that. All of a sudden, we're talking about a player who, could be in line for a longer tenure in Cleveland with the Cleveland Browns. Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, 2 sacks. I mean, I'm hoping we're going to get a better number than that because I want to see Joe Tryon transform back to what he was at Washington when he was playing with his hand in the dirt, not where he ended up becoming a stand-up edge as Tampa was doing with him, towards the latter part of his time in Tampa. I was a huge fan of Tryon coming out of UW. So for him to hopefully get the opportunity here to basically relight the lamp on his career, I'm hoping that comes certainly, for Joe Tryon here in the 2025 season. Like I said, he has the Browns down at 4.6 wins, which would have them in his rankings 32nd. which would mean the Cleveland Browns, according to Mike Clay from ESPN, would be drafting number 1 overall again. I'm sorry, not again, but drafting number 1 overall. I don't want it. It would be a coup, though, for a team that has 2 first-round picks. Take that quarterback, get it out of the way, trade down from the Jacksonville pick, get another first-round pick for 2027, and, hey, Mr. DJ, keep that music playing. I think the Browns, and again, I've said this, for the Browns, it's not necessarily going to be based on wins and losses. I know. That's how it should be based, yes. But are they going to be in every game for 60 minutes? That was the biggest problem with the 2024 team. And there were times where even the Browns got out to a lead, and then once the other team got the lead, you just felt that this team didn't have any fight and was not going to battle the way it did in 2023. It just didn't seem like they had that, fire, desire to them. And Greg Newsome also spoke today at the charity golf event, and basically said it's already a different vibe around here. And when guys are saying stuff like that, there's something that just literally comes to my mind right away. And who was this team basically built around for 23 and 24 before he ended up getting injured and finishing neither season? Deshaun just was never it. He was never the guy. He never played like the guy. He never acted like the guy. And, we can continue to beat this move to death for years and years and years to come. We all know how terrible the move was. It was just terrible. It literally blew up in their faces. An absolute disgrace of a transaction between what they gave up, between what they paid him, from the lack of caring that he just never, ever looked remotely like the guy. He kind of, if you remember back in the day, Urkel had the alter ego, Stefan. Well, the Browns thought they were getting Stefan. The Browns got Urkel. And it certainly hampered this franchise. But now the point is they're beyond it. And, maybe Gabriel, maybe Shador Sanders, maybe one of these guys turns out to be the guy. Or maybe come April of 2026, they're going to go find the guy. Or certainly going to try to, at least. I like doing this just because I like doing this episode, and I like basing it off of this piece that Mike does. Look, this is, year round fantasy work. This is what he does, but you kind of want to try to get a baseline of what you think these guys are capable of and what could be. Like I said, for Judkins, it's a really nice number. Cedric Tillman, that's a nice number. Like I said, I think Shador Sanders and Dylan Gabriel will start the majority of the games this season for the Cleveland Browns. So with those two starting 9 out of the 17 games, you would think you get some sort of read on those guys. But, what would be indicative from the numbers from Mike Clay is neither of these guys are necessarily going to give you what you're hoping for as far as do we or do we not approach quarterback in the 2026 NFL draft. It would take an absolute just bananas effort to find a reason to not go quarterback in round 1 with 2 first-round picks in 2026. And I just don't think anything's going to happen that's going to put the Browns in that situation. Again, everybody here at the OBR, we appreciate you all for the support every day, whether it's reading the written content or, of course, coming out nightly to the OBR streaming network beginning at 6 o'clock with Browns 3D, Stick around. You will have Jacob and Sam with their Dylan Gabriel film review later this evening on the OBR streaming network. Subscribe to the OBR on YouTube. Subscribe to the OBR, of course, over on Twitch. This has been your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound Browns 3D on the OBR, and we will talk to you all tomorrow.